I smiled when I signed the exit form. Right there in the lobby of Callaway Tower, security guard standing 3 feet away, cardboard box in his hands. They thought it was over. What they didn't know, what nobody in that building understood, was that the $180 million model they'd been counting on had never actually belonged to them. Not for a single day. Not one. My name is Garrett Holloway. I'm 49. Until about 10 minutes before that smile, I was the senior quant architect at Vantage Clearstone Capital in Chicago, built their core risk models for 4 years. The kind of models that made the firm look like geniuses in every quarterly review, every client meeting, every press release they put out with their names on it. That Tuesday morning, at 9:08 a.m., I was being restructured. The lobby of Callaway Tower smelled like burnt coffee and carpet cleaner. Dana Whitfield from HR was already waiting when the elevator opened. She had a tablet, a leather folder, and that practiced expression people use when they want to seem sorry without actually being sorry. She slid a single sheet of paper across the reception desk without saying hello. Exit form. Voluntary separation. Voluntary. That word was doing a lot of work. As we discussed, she started, her voice smooth and rehearsed, due to the recent strategic realignment, your position has been made redundant. Redundant. Restructured. The corporate vocabulary for we want what you built, and we've decided we don't need you to keep it. Through the glass wall of his corner office, I could see Preston Aldridge, our CEO, turned away from me looking at something on his monitor. Shoulders perfectly squared. He didn't look at me once. Preston was the kind of man who could order something ugly done and then simply not be present for it. Plausible deniability as a lifestyle. Owen Briggs, one of the security officers, came over with the cardboard box. His kid and my son had played on the same baseball team for 2 seasons. Owen wouldn't look at me either. I didn't hold it against him. He was just doing his job. Your access card, Dana said. I slid it out. The light flashed red. 1 sharp beep. 4 years, 1 beep. Dana pushed the exit form toward me along with a cheap plastic pen. The kind with the company logo printed on the side, designed to be thrown away, disposable. Like me, apparently, if you'll just sign here. I'll use my own, I said. She blinked. Small disruption in the script. I reached into my jacket and pulled out a Parker Jotter. Laura gave it to me on our 20th anniversary. Solid, simple, no nonsense. The kind of pen that doesn't skip or smear. I uncapped it, and for a second, the whole lobby went quiet in my head. The HVAC hum. The distant sound of keyboards from the trading floor above. All of it faded. One line was running through my mind on a loop. CRML 12. Section 7. Subsection 2. They thought this signature was my surrender. It wasn't. It was the trigger. My left hand rested in my lap. My thumb moved across the face of my smartwatch, a small custom widget I'd coded myself, sitting there for months, waiting. 2 words on the screen. Prepare, revoke. I tapped it, a quiet buzz confirmed the command was staged. A digital fuse lit. I pushed the signed form back toward Dana. She picked it up with that small look of relief people get when something unpleasant is almost finished. Thank you, Garrett. You'll need to hand over all intellectual property, passwords, and access keys related to your work here. I met her eyes. I'll hand over everything the company owns. She opened her mouth, closed it. That answer wasn't in her script, and she didn't know what to do with it. Before she could recover, Nolan Steed walked out from the executive hallway. CFO, 55 years old, sharp angles, the kind of expensive cologne that announces itself before the person does. He had a smile that never quite reached his eyes. Nolan was the one who had architected this whole play, convinced Preston that a $18 million asset could be picked up for the cost of 8 weeks' severance. He placed a hand on Dana's shoulder, not to comfort her, but to move her out of the conversation. She stepped back, practically vanished. Let's not make this complicated, Garrett, he said, voice low, the tone of a man who thinks he's being reasonable. Our agreement is clear. All work performed using company resources falls under standard work for hire. Vantage owns the model. He was bluffing, but he was counting on the weight of the moment to do his work for him. The lobby, the witnesses, the red light on the security reader, the cardboard box sitting on the floor next to Owen's feet. I didn't argue. I reached forward and pulled my original employment contract from behind Dana's folder. Turned to the last page, pointed to a single line near the bottom. Section 2.1, I said, Creator Retained Model Lease, CRML 12, something moved behind his eyes, fast. Gone before most people would catch it. He leaned in close, dropped his voice. That's a cute piece of paper, but it doesn't matter. We control the servers, we control the data, and if we need to, we'll amend the employment records to reflect ownership retroactively. There it was, out loud. In front of witnesses, the CFO of Vantage Clearston Capital had just told me he was willing to falsify company documents to take intellectual property that wasn't his. He'd handed me the entire case on a silver plate and didn't even know it. I looked at him for a moment. Then I pulled the exit form in front of me, picked up the Parker Jotter, and signed my name clean and even Garrett Holloway. I slid the form across the desk, stood up, didn't look at any of them, walked to the elevator, pressed the button, stepped in when the doors opened. They slid shut with a quiet click. The hum of the elevator going down was the only sound, not an ending. The bell at the start of round 1. I didn't take a cab. I walked 3 blocks, steady pace, no rush. The cold air off Lake Michigan hit my face, and I let it. Around me, people were heads down, moving fast, lost in their own Tuesday mornings. Nobody looked at me. I was just another guy in a jacket carrying nothing but a phone and a watch. The coffee shop was small, the kind of place that doesn't have its name on a sign outside. I took a table in the back corner, back to the wall, clear line to the door. Old habit. I ordered a glass of water, set my phone face up on the table, opened the laptop, and sat for a moment before I did anything. Let me tell you how Titan Pulse got built. 4 years ago, Vantage hired me to do what every other quant shop was already doing. Clean data, standard feeds, predictive models that told you what the market was already pricing in. The problem with clean data is exactly that. It's clean, everyone has it. You can't build an edge out of information that 12 other firms are running through the same algorithms. The real signal is in the noise. The stuff that looks like garbage on the surface. So I started hunting in the garbage. Freight truck GPS delay patterns out of the Port of Los Angeles. Regional bank wire transfer timing out of smaller Midwest clearinghouses. Satellite imaging of cargo density over Pacific shipping corridors. Energy consumption spikes in data centers concentrated in specific zip codes, the kind of spike that happens when a company is running emergency overnight processing. None of it looked like financial data. Most quants would filter it out before their second cup of coffee. But underneath it, there were patterns, small ones. A 0.3% slowdown in container throughput at Long Beach would show up as a micro dip in a specific semiconductor supplier's cash flow timing about 19 days later. A cluster of after-hours wire activity from regional banks in 3 Ohio counties would precede a logistics firm's earnings miss by about 2 weeks. On their own, these signals meant nothing. Stacked together, weighted right, they were something. I called it financial weather. The stuff that happens before the storm that nobody's watching because it doesn't look like a storm yet. I built the core of Titan Pulse in my garage. After work, after dinner, after my son went to bed, Laura would bring coffee out sometimes, check on me, not say much. She knew what I was doing. She'd seen me like this before, locked in, quiet, working on something I couldn't fully explain yet. She never pushed, just made sure I ate. Some nights I'd be out there until 1 a.m., just me and 3 monitors and the sound of the furnace clicking on and off. My son asked me once what I was building. I said something that's going to matter. He nodded like that made sense and went back inside. It took 2 years before the model was producing results I trusted. Another year before I was ready to show anyone, but before I walked it into Callaway Tower, I did one thing first. One Saturday afternoon, laptop open at the kitchen table, coffee going cold next to me, I filed the paperwork for Holloway Analytics LLC. A simple shell. Took about 40 minutes. Cost less than $300. That LLC became the legal owner of everything I'd built. When I presented Titan Pulse to the board, I didn't present it as an internal project. I presented it as a finished product, owned by an outside vendor, Holloway Analytics LLC, available for lease. My employment at Vantage was a separate matter. 2 different documents, 2 different relationships. Their lawyers looked at the lease addendum, 4 pages, the section labeled CRML 12, and basically skimmed it. I watched them do it. They saw the clause requiring the model to run on Vantage's servers and assumed that meant they owned it. That was their mistake, and it was a fundamental one. Possession isn't ownership. Having the fish tank doesn't mean you own the fish. Preston told me at a quarterly dinner about a year in. He'd had a couple glasses of scotch, was in a good mood, expansive. This model, Garrett, it's our crown jewel. We own it because it lives on our servers. I smiled and said, the servers are a great home for it. That was all I said. The model worked. Q3 of last year, Titan Pulse flagged exposure patterns that, if they'd gone unaddressed, would have cost the firm 38% of their projected quarterly losses. The Hargrove Retirement Fund, about 380,000 retirees, depending on that money, increased their allocation with Vantage by $2.3 billion. Their CRO told Preston directly it was because of the firm's risk technology. Preston thanked him and took the credit in the press release. Then Pinnacle Quant Group showed up with a term sheet, $180 million for full acquisition of Titan Pulse. Preston and Nolan looked at that number, and something shifted in both of them. I could see it happen in real time during the meeting. This quiet recalculation behind their eyes. They'd been treating me well enough until that moment. After it, everything changed. The invitations to certain meetings stopped. Nolan started asking my junior analysts questions about the model's architecture. The kind of questions you ask when you're trying to understand something without the original builder in the room. Preston stopped mentioning my name in client presentations. I'd seen it coming for weeks, probably longer, if I'm honest. So I made sure everything was ready. 3 layers, all of them built from day one, all of them disguised as standard features, so nobody thought twice about them. The first was the source code escrow, the complete, uncompiled source for Titan Pulse. Every library, every dependency, every line was never stored on a Vantage server. Not one line of it. It sat in a cryptographically sealed vault, managed by Nexum Vault Services, a third-party IP custodian. The release conditions were hardwired to the CRML12 lease status. Active lease, vault stays sealed. Lease terminated under bad faith, vault shifts to pending release, but only to me, only with my authorization key. They had been running a $180 million engine for 4 years without ever holding the blueprints. The second layer was the replay box. If anyone ever forked the code and tried to spin up a copy in a new environment, the cloned instance would be cut off from the live data feeds it needed. It would fall back on the only data available to it, a sealed 30-day loop of simulated historical inputs baked into the model's core package. And that data was poisoned, carefully, specifically poisoned with a handful of statistical impossibilities. A healthy model connected to real feeds would never process them. A cloned, isolated instance would take them at face value and start generating specific microscopic anomalies in its output, a very particular signature, like a die pack in a bag of stolen cash. The logs from any cloned instance would be routed automatically to a secure endpoint I controlled. I'd sold it to Nolan's team as a version integrity feature, a way to make sure the model's output stayed consistent across environments. He'd nodded like he understood and moved on. The third layer was the kill switch, a lightweight background process running quietly on Vantage's own servers, checking their internal blockchain compliance ledger every 5 minutes. While the CRML12 lease token read active, it did nothing at all. The moment that token flipped to void, triggered by a cryptographically signed command from my watch, the process would execute one simple instruction on its next cycle. It wouldn't delete anything. It wouldn't crash anything. It would switch Titan Pulse to permanent read-only state. The model would stop ingesting new data. Stop learning. Its predictions would keep running for a while technically, but they'd get less accurate by the hour. Yesterday's model trying to predict today's market. I'd built the cage 4 years ago. They'd been living inside it ever since, thinking it was a palace. Back in the coffee shop, I looked down at my watch. The command was still staged, waiting. My thumb moved across the glass face. I pressed, yes. One quiet buzz, done. Nolan called 58 seconds later. I could hear it in his voice before he said a word, that tight, controlled edge people use when something is going wrong, and they're trying not to show it yet. Background noise behind him. A door closing hard. Garrett, the theatrics are over. Come back in. We sit down. We renegotiate. Everyone walks away with something good here. I didn't say anything. While he was talking, I had a second window open on my laptop, a public-facing network camera, with a clean line of sight to the 14th floor of Callaway Tower. I watched it happen in real time. The server rack status lights, normally a steady, calm green across the board, started flickering. Amber, then red. A cascade moving left to right like dominoes. The main risk dashboard in the center of the trading floor, the one that ran Titan Pulse's output on a rolling display, froze mid-cycle. A column of live numbers locked up, turned static red, then the whole screen went blank. People on the floor started looking up from their stations. A few stood. Someone pointed at the display wall. "What is going on?" I heard Nolan say, not to me, to someone else in the room with him. His voice had shifted. The controlled edge was gone. I ended the call. My phone lit up immediately. Text from Preston. "Garrett, call me. We need to work through this. Come back to the office." I typed back one line. "Please direct all correspondence to my legal counsel." Then I opened my anonymous keyword feed, a scrape of Vantage's internal messaging channels that a contact had set up for me weeks ago. It was already moving fast. Trading desk, anyone else's risk board dead? Support AD is unresponsive. What's happening on 14? Quant team, the model isn't crashed, it's static. The learning process is offline. Sales east, client asking for volatility projections, Titan Pulse not responding. Sales west confirm, model down across all terminals. They were blind, completely blind. And they had no framework for what was happening because nothing in their experience looked like this. It wasn't a crash. It wasn't a hack. The system was running perfectly. It had just stopped being theirs. At 9:34 a.m., a message came through on my encrypted app from my contact at Pinnacle Quant Group. 3 words. "The sheet is held." That was the $180 million term sheet. The entire reason Nolan had built this play officially frozen. Their team had been watching Titan Pulse's performance dashboard as part of standard due diligence. The moment the model's output curve flatlined, their legal team paused everything pending an explanation. You don't acquire a dying asset. You don't pay $180 million for something that stopped working 20 minutes ago. The first pillar of their plan had just turned to dust. At 9:47 a.m., my personal phone buzzed. Edward Calloway, Chief Risk Officer at the Hargrove Retirement Fund. He wasn't a man who called to chat. When Edward called, it meant something had broken. "Garrett." No preamble. "We're seeing a near-total drop in risk signal from the Vantage feed. Warnings down about 90% in the last 15 minutes. Vantage's support team is telling us it's a temporary server issue. I need to know what's actually happening. I'm no longer with Vantage as of this morning." I told him I can't speak to their systems. A pause. "Understood. We're issuing a formal inquiry. They have 2 hours under our SLA to provide a full remediation plan. I want you to know we're treating this as a material breach. That's your call to make, Edward. You have my number if you need anything." He thanked me and hung up. Hargrove managed retirement funds for 380,000 people. They did not tolerate ambiguity and they did not issue warnings twice. The clock was now running on Vantage from multiple directions at once. At 10:03 a.m., a screenshot started moving through back channels, someone inside Vantage's legal department leaking a document being circulated internally. The header read, "Addendum to Employment Agreement, Intellectual Property Clarification." It was a retroactive attempt to reclassify my work as work for hire, backdated to my first day of employment. Fraud, plain and simple. But the more telling thing was the reply chain underneath it. "Legal Junior. They want me to sign this. Something is not right here. Compliance MGR. I'm not putting my name on a backdated IP transfer. Are they serious? Legal Senior, do not reply to this chain. We discuss in person. Nobody signs anything." Nolan had given the order to falsify documents. His own legal team was refusing. They were more afraid of bar complaints and criminal exposure than they were of him. He was losing the room inside his own building. At 10:11 a.m., the alert I had been waiting for hit a private inbox. Subject, cloned instance detected. The automated message from my replay box included a timestamp, a server-side IP address, and a 10-line output log from the cloned instance. I cross-referenced the IP. It mapped directly to a workstation inside Nolan Steed's personal office. He had pulled a backup, spun it up on his own machine thinking he'd found a way around the kill switch, thinking he could just run a copy and nobody would know. What he'd actually done was trigger the die pack. The replay box had fed his cloned instance the poisoned data loop, and the output was already showing the signature, a very specific anomaly pattern bleeding into 7 different risk vectors. The logs were time-stamped, source identified, and already sitting on my secure server, immutable, undenial. And by running that clone, Nolan had activated Section 7.2 of the CRML 1.2 lease, the penalty clause. Unauthorized operation of a cloned instance after license termination. 8 times the annualized license fee, payable immediately. 8 times $22 million. 17.6 million. Due now. In his panic, Nolan Steed had just written me a check for more than the deal was worth. He tried to steal the model and ended up generating a liability that could sink the firm. I saved the log file to 3 separate encrypted backups and closed the alert. Outside, it had started to rain. Light, steady, the kind that comes in off the lake and doesn't quit. I watched it streak down the window next to my table and took a slow sip of water. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Spencer Voss, managing partner at Pinnacle Quant Group. He didn't leave a voicemail. He sent one line through the encrypted channel: "We need to talk. Video call." Now, the video call came at 11:44 a.m., organized by Pinnacle's legal team, forwarded to me through Spencer's assistant with a note that said simply, "Please join, all parties present." I accepted from the same corner table. Didn't move, didn't change anything about where I was or how I looked. The plain wall of the coffee shop behind me was fine. I wasn't there to impress anyone. My screen split into 5 sections. Preston Aldridge, sitting at his desk in the corner office. I'd watched him from 6 hours ago. His face was pale, the usual confidence drained out of it. He was holding himself very still, the way people do when they're trying not to show how badly they're shaking. Nolan Steed, jaw tight, eyes moving between the other faces on the call. He still had the look of a man who thought he might find an angle if he just kept looking. Dana Whitfield off to one side, visibly uncomfortable, clearly wishing she was somewhere else. Spencer Voss and Sloan Merritt from Pinnacle, seated side by side, expressions neutral and professional. Miles Sutton was just off camera, but I could hear him in the background. Edward Calloway from the Hargrove Retirement Fund, alone in what looked like a conference room, reading glasses on, a legal pad in front of him. And Eli Donovan from Nexum Vault Services, a small square in the corner of my screen, face unreadable. I kept my camera on and said nothing, just waited. Preston spoke first. He tried to sound like a man in control of the room. "Thank you all for joining on short notice. We're here to resolve what has been an unfortunate internal miscommunication." Garrett, he looked directly at my image. "Vantage is prepared to make a formal offer to bring this matter to a close. We will purchase all rights and claims to the Titan Pulse asset from Holloway Analytics LLC for $20 million. Funds wired today." Nobody on the call said anything for a moment. $20 million. For an asset his own firm had been trying to sell for $180 million that same morning. The number was so disconnected from reality that it sat in the air like something had gone wrong with the audio. I kept my voice even. "Preston, the license to operate Titan Pulse was terminated at 9:08 this morning. You don't have the right to purchase what you no longer have any claim to, and that offer should be directed to Pinnacle Quant Group since they're the active party in acquisition discussions, not you." Preston opened his mouth. Nolan cut in before he could speak. "We have a backup." His voice was tight, controlled, but there was something desperate underneath it. A full snapshot from yesterday. "We don't need your master key or your escrow. We'll have it running by end of day. Try and stop us." He thought that was his ace. He'd been holding it the whole call, waiting for the right moment to play it. He had no idea he'd already played it 3 hours ago. Eli Donovan unmuted himself. His voice was calm and completely without drama, the way people sound when they're reading from a verified record. "For the purposes of this call and the record being maintained, Nexum Vault Services can confirm that at 10:11 a.m. this morning, our monitoring systems detected an unauthorized instantiation of leased asset ID TP4471. The originating IP address is registered to an internal workstation within the Vantage Clearstone Capital Network." He paused for exactly 1 beat. "As the designated custodian of the governing agreement, CRML 12, I'm required to note that this action has triggered Section 7.2. Unauthorized operation of a cloned instance following license termination incurs a penalty of 8 times the annualized license fee. Based on current asset valuation, that penalty stands at $176 million, payable immediately by the lessee to the lessor." The call went silent. Not the polite silence of people thinking. The hard silence of people absorbing something that can't be taken back. Nolan's face didn't move for a full 3 seconds. Then something behind his eyes shifted. Not anger, not calculation. Just the flat gray look of a man who has just understood the full dimensions of what he's done. Preston put his hand over his mouth. He was staring at his desk. Spencer Voss didn't waste a second. In light of the confirmed absence of valid licensing, the attempted unauthorized operation of the asset, and Vantage's demonstrated inability to establish clean chain of title.
He spoke like he was reading a prepared statement, which he probably was. Pinnacle Quant Group formally rescinds its offer to Vantage Clearstone Capital, effective immediately.
We have issued a new term sheet directly to Holloway Analytics LLC for the full $180 million. Our counsel is standing by for signature. Edward Calloway set his pen down on the legal pad. The Hargrove Retirement Fund has voted to invoke the material breach clause of our service agreement with Vantage, effective as of this morning's service outage. We are withdrawing our data pipeline and have executed a letter of intent with Holloway Analytics LLC pending full contract. I want that on the record. Dana made a small sound that wasn't quite a word. Preston was still staring at his desk. Nolan looked into his camera. For a moment, I thought he was going to say something, one more threat, one more angle. But there was nothing left. The model was gone. The deal was gone. The client was gone. And somewhere on a compliance ledger that his own firm had built and maintained, the record of what he'd done this morning was sitting in a block that nobody could alter or delete. I had one thing left to do. I opened a small dashboard on a second window, not visible to the call. A single indicator showing Titan Pulse's operational status on Vantage's servers, still amber. Read-only, but still technically present on their network. Still showing its ghost of a logo on the few monitors down on the trading floor that hadn't been turned off yet. Next to the status light was a button, Finalize Revoke. I clicked it. On the live feed I still had open in a corner of my screen. The last few active monitors on the trading floor went dark, one by one, then all at once. I unmuted myself for the first time since the call began. I signed the exit form just like you asked. I said, and I took the only thing you never understood. I clicked leave. The screen went blank. 5 faces, gone. The coffee shop was quiet. Someone near the window was typing. The espresso machine hissed once outside. A bus went by. I closed the laptop, sat back, took a long drink of water that had been sitting there since morning. Then I picked up my phone and typed a message to Laura. Done. Coming home. Her reply came in about 4 seconds. I'll put something on. That was it. That was the whole thing. 4 years in the garage. 4 years of being the guy in the background while other people put their names on the work. 4 years of watching Preston shake hands with clients over results he didn't build and couldn't explain. All of it compressed into one Tuesday morning. One signed form, one tap on a watch, and a text message to my wife. They built the cage themselves. Every server, every compliance ledger, every backup snapshot. They handed me the materials and asked me to make something valuable, and I did, and I made sure that when the day came, every single thing they'd built to protect themselves would be the thing that finished them. I didn't need to hack anyone. I didn't break a single law. I just built the house, built the locks, and walked out holding every key. They never thought to ask who held the deed. The most dangerous person in any room isn't the one making the loudest threats. It's the one who already knows how the story ends before it even begins. They had every advantage: the building, the servers, the lawyers, the money. He had one thing they didn't. He'd read every word of a contract they'd never bothered to finish.